Trump
Yeah.
making North Korea a rogue state.
Yeah.
Does that put a lot of pressure on China's banks in China?
I was actually watching a pretty good analysis of just that issue today. So here's a couple takes on it. First, one take would argue that it is very much just a ceremonial wave of the hand. And the argument says there are already so many sanctions on North Korea that any additional sanctions that might come from adding them to the terrorist list really is not going to fundamentally impact. It's more symbolic than anything else. That said, symbols matter, and I don't know if you guys watched, but there was a very real and visceral reaction from the North Koreans and the statements they put out about Trump's comments. It's not pretty. And so another take on it is that given Tillerson and his work on the North Korean issue over the last couple of weeks, that there's a question as to whether or not putting them on the terrorist watch list, in fact, hinders the ability to continue promoting this diplomacy track. And so that's a real question, too. And again, I would have to suggest that given North Korea's response, which was not, okay, we'll come to the table, that it might have made things a little worse. I'll be honest, I'm not sure of the timing.
Well, my question was more that if there's pressure put on Chinese banks,
Yes.
would they influence the Chinese government to...
Now, one of the other interesting parts of the analysis was an argument that basically was saying that the United States is overemphasizing or overinflating what they understand to be Chinese influence on the North Koreans. So, for instance, apparently there was a Chinese envoy that went to go visit North Korea last Thursday or Friday, was there for the weekend with the whole goal of trying to use Chinese influence to push the North Koreans. From Chinese state reports, he got home yesterday or Sunday with quote-unquote nothing accomplished. And so, again, one has to question, you're welcome, one has to question whether or not China has as much influence over North Korea as the Americans would like to think. The reality is North Korea is heavily, heavily poor. Right? They have so many problems there. And to put this in perspective, the state of Nebraska makes 2 to 3 times more money in a year than the entire state of North Korea in terms of economics, okay? And so one of the positives of that is that if they've already figured out how to operate under those guidelines, increased pressure through sanctions really isn't going to, if you're already eating dog food out of a can, there's not really much more you're going to do in terms of punishing them in that regard. And there certainly seems to be, there's always been this kind of hidden hope that the North Korean people would somehow rise up and decide enough was enough. You're talking generations of brainwashing, and it's not going to happen. So
I was thinking along other lines, though,
like what?
rather than not the population itself, but, North Korea needs something to trade to get.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the money flowing in, or they don't have access to money, then, things can start to come to a standstill.
And we're going to talk about it because there's different arguments or models regarding why a state pursues nuclear weapons, okay? And I think there are a couple of the models that are potentially at play within the North Korean case. So, for instance, there is definitely a component of the North Korean pursuit of nuclear weapons that rests on their belief that no matter how much you dislike them now, the moment they are a legitimate nuclear power, you'll have no choice but to deal with them legitimately. So for them, biting the bullet right now in several ways is worth it because they believe that ultimately the nuclear weapon is their key to the big boys club. And they believe ultimately that once they get that key, there's nothing you can do to stop them. Yeah.
I thought that one article you had on the list was interesting, that way back for Charles de Gaulle, how that's a macho thing.
Oh.
We got a nuclear.
Very much. I mean, it drove, there was no more important project for Stalin after World War II than making sure he caught the Americans and got a bomb.
Yeah, well, when they stole it, and nothing else. He brought the guys in and said, get it.
Yeah.
No matter how you do it, he
And
didn't
then
care.
the Chinese had it 5-6 years later. And so from the Chinese or from
And
the
their
American
scientists
perspective-
weren't that good.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of there's
What
a
was-
lot of clandestine stuff going on.
What was the word Francis de Gaulle used? Grandeur or something that they had to have it back.
Yeah, it's the French are unique. The French have always believed that they deserve more because they're the French. I don't know if you study French history, it's rather amazing. I mean, you can go all the way back to the Franco-Prussian War, and they'll, oh no, you snuck up on us. Just give us a fair fight. And then World War I comes. Oh, we weren't ready. So the French. Yeah. I don't know. And then when you see, to me, the worst part of the French foreign policy really takes place at the end of World War II, when they try and go back and grab onto their former imperial and colonial holdings, specifically North Africa, Vietnam. What the French did in Southeast Asia from, say, 46 to 50, 54, before Dien Bien Phu, they really were as nasty a group of imperialists as anybody else.
And I think they thought it was justified.
Yes.
They
They
thought-
wanted their empire.
Listen, and that's one of the, both the British and the French obviously engaged in significant imperialism and colonialism.